Hi, this is Tara with Love Prevails, and I'm here with my friend Whitney. And again, at Love Prevails, we offer intervention and support services for family and people that are struggling with addiction. And I want to thank you again for all of you that are supporting me through this and that watch these videos. I have my friend Whitney here, and I asked Whitney to come and talk to us. With the holidays that just came, did you enjoy your Thanksgiving? What did you do for Thanksgiving?
Actually, Thanksgiving was really nice. Thursday, we went to my dad's, and my two brothers. I'm the youngest of four. We actually lost a brother in 2014 to alcoholism. So it was me, my oldest brother Steve, and my middle brother Nate. We went to my dad's house with his wife Sue, and then my son was there, Steve's girlfriend Erin, and then my son's mom and her daughter Layla. And it was, I have one of my brothers is still an active addiction, and normally there's a scene caused, and it went as smooth as it possibly could, and it was like to the point where something's going to happen, and it didn't happen, so it turned out wonderfully. And then Friday we did nothing, and then Saturday we had another Thanksgiving with my mom. So, and then Saturday night we had a Christmas tree giving and tree lighting at the company I work for. So I got in a couple of hours of overtime and got to see what our community. I work at Sterling Ranch, and just see what the community is building for our residents and how much they enjoy what we do for them. So
That's
it was a
awesome.
really good weekend.
It sounds like a lot of food.
There, yes, but it was weird. My dad normally gives us a doggy bag, and this year he did not. I was very upset.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad. It wasn't very nice.
The doggy bags are nice.
They're the best because the next day, turkey leftovers are the best. I love cold turkey sandwiches with just mustard.
Or just
There
mustard.
wasn't any this
And
year.
mayonnaise. And mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise is good too.
Yeah.
So I was upset Friday.
I would be too. Yeah. Me and my oldest daughter, we went to a friend's house, had a really nice time, and got to meet her family, and just it was really neat watching her family interact with each other. It made my heart really happy. But we had a really nice time. I got to do a little bit of baking, which I love to do.
Ooh, what'd you bake?
Pies and lots of cookies and
Like homemade pies?
Yeah.
Oh, like what?
apple,
I love pie.
apple and pumpkin. I posted them on Facebook.
I didn't see them.
Yeah,
Where's my piece now?
they're not here,
They're gone.
so you don't get a doggy bag here either.
Yeah, but I got this.
We do.
Look at this
Yeah.
cute little guy. I was actually gonna eat it. Tara was like, "It's not edible."
No.
So luckily, she told me because I.
No, it's not edible. All right. So again, we've been doing these videos, reaching out to individuals that might be struggling with addiction, trying to decide whether or not they are ready to get sober, or trying to decide if sobriety is even right for them. And so I've been doing these videos, trying to reach out to different people, get the word out there that you're not alone. And Whitney, what I'd like to know is what brought you into sobriety, and why do you stay? That's to me, knowing why you even came in is important, because there's a lot of people. My story is way different than yours and the next person.
Yeah.
And so not everybody knows why they need to get sober. But
not only that, a lot of people are not. They're not even given the opportunity to get sober, which is, to me, it's mind-boggling, because AA as a whole is just ginormous. And so for me, my addiction started. It dates back 4 years old. I do have bipolar disorder, and from a young age of 4, I had auditory hallucinations of a voice that was not nice and told me that I was worthless. And I grew up in a very loving home, which was weird because I wasn't worthless. My mother told me constantly how much she loved me and that I had a purpose. But the voices, the music, I call it the music now, would tell me you're not good enough, you're worthless, no matter what you do in life, you'll never amount to anything. And I believed those lies. Um, it's really weird. My first drink was at 5. It was like a Budweiser, Bud Light, and it didn't have the phenomenon of craving. But I do remember distinctly at 9, my father asked me to make him a gin and tonic, and I made one and took a sip, and it just immediately my whole body warmed up, and I felt this sense of calm and ease and comfort, and it turned a light switch on in my brain, and it allowed me to think, to believe that I wasn't what the voices were telling me, that I was smart, that I was funny, that I could be successful. I chased that feeling for umpteen years, and I moved to Hollywood when I turned 18. I had this lifelong dream of being a Hollywood star. I remember I stayed sober for 2 weeks, and I met a gentleman out there, Joe, who owned a liquor store. I was 18, and he sold to me underage because I lied. I had a fake New York accent, and told him I lost my ID in the move, and he sold me a bottle of vodka, and it was off to the races. And I lived in Hollywood for 3.5 years, and I did a lot of fun stuff, but I also blew a lot of opportunities. And I remember I came home one day, and there was a one-way bus pass on the kitchen counter, and my stuff was packed. And I looked at my mom, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And she said, I cannot watch you kill yourself anymore. And it was, unfortunately, the only place I had to move was in with a sibling who was addicted to crystal meth. And, I had already experimented with those drugs, and one thing led to another, and it was just a downhill spiral. And it got so bad that it got to the point where you couldn't live without alcohol, meaning if I removed the alcohol from me, I would have an alcoholic seizure. I couldn't live with alcohol because my life was a mess. I couldn't function. I couldn't work. I had no friends. I had no life. It just got really bad. And then the suicide ideation came back in, and I kept trying over and over and over to kill myself. And at 21, I went to my first AA meeting, and I went because I thought it would teach me how to drink properly, I guess we'd call it, or successfully. And what it did do is I heard a message that said in AA, even if you want to, you don't have to drink. And I couldn't comprehend that because I'm like, I want to drink. And I'm like, I couldn't wrap my head around that because if I want to drink, I'm going to drink. And even if I don't think about alcohol, that's all I would think about was alcohol. And luckily, I had 2 parents who never truly gave up on me. One of my parents did hit their breaking point, and they had cut me off, and the other parent remained very involved, would drive to and from Arizona once in a while. I actually ended up homeless at the end of my addiction, and very, very extensive suicide attempts. I had a gun in my mouth, and I was having auditory hallucinations at the time. So the voices upstairs, the music was dead. It was too easy, so I pulled the gun on my mouth, and with the plan being to shoot the kidney out my back to bleed to death. But when I pulled the trigger, the gun turned and it came out my back, and now I have a left leg that 40% of it doesn't work. And that wasn't even the worst. And so a couple of years later, it was actually in 2008 was when I got kicked out of the Denver Arrest Commission, which is a homeless a homeless shelter, and they have an absolute zero tolerance for drug and alcohol use. And I got caught in the bathroom smoking crack. And they packed my belongings, and on my way out, they said, "You are never allowed back in this facility." So, as a homeless person being kicked out of a homeless shelter was very trying. I lived under a bridge at 14th and Spear. I flew a sign during the day, and I lived with a lot of guilt because I would actually use the scar that runs from my sternum to my pubic region as a means to raise money, saying that I was a wounded vet. And a lot of people have bleeding hearts for people who've given their lives for this country, and I took advantage of that and used it. And I still have a lot of guilt about that, but I've been told when you're addicted to drugs and alcohol, it's a disease. You do things that aren't right, but it's because you're not a bad person. It's because you're sick, and sick people will do what they need to do to make themselves feel better. It's just like, a cancer patient gets medication to help them try to get better. It's with alcoholism. Alcohol, we think, makes us feel better. It's a double-edged sword because it's a temporary feeling that you try to fuel and fuel and fuel.
Hurt people.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because the story of hitting rock bottom, ironically, I was sitting on a rock in my homeless encampment, and I used to call my son from Denver Health because they had a free public phone. I called one evening, and his mother answered the phone, and she said, "I know what you've been doing, and because of that, you can no longer talk to our son." You know what I've been doing? So what had happened is when you're homeless and don't have access to funds, or you spend your funds on alcohol and drugs, there's no money left over to feed yourself. And actually, there was a Mexican restaurant across the campus from our campus, and I dug in the trash and took out a half-eaten burrito. And Carly's best friend happened to work at the Cricket store, and she happened to be on her lunch break and saw me take a half-eaten burrito out of the trash can and was eating it there in public. And she called Carly, and probably shouldn't use names, but that's exactly what she was referring to, is you've gotten so sick that you're eating food out of a trash can. Mm-hmm. But on that perch, on that rock, I remember I had a half gallon of vodka in my right hand and a picture of my son in the left. And, I remember looking at the picture just with bawling, just like I wanted to be this child's father so bad, and I would have done anything to have been there, but because I lost a lot of years not being there for him, and I really lucked out because he's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful son. But the bottle was just too powerful, and I remember I took a sip, and it was back off to the races, and I felt so much shame and guilt that I walked to the Walgreens on 16th and I believe it's California. I stole a bottle of extra strength Tylenol. It was 500 pills. It was a 100 pill bottle of Excedrin, a 10-ounce bottle of NyQuil, about another liter of vodka. I hopped on the free shuttle ride, and from 16th in California to where it ends at the shuttle access, I consumed all 600 pills, the bottle of NyQuil, and the bottle of booze. And that was my goal, though, was I did not want to be here anymore. And I remember I went up the stairwell and down the other side, and the Platte River runs behind REI, and I was on the south end, so you could see REI from where I crawled into a bush to go to sleep permanently. And again, God intervened, and I woke up so mad. I literally had blood coming out of every orifice of my body, and it was pouring. It was just pouring rain, and um, I worked my way up into this with a giant pine tree to get out of the rain, and there was a bunch of mushrooms. I don't know if they were poisonous or not, but I was hungry and I started eating them, and then not but a couple hours later, I was very delusional, hearing very bad, wicked, mean voices telling me, and this has never happened before, telling me to hurt other people, and it freaked me out. And then out of nowhere, it was a nice, light, loving, kind, reminding voice that was like, it was really weird because it was a Sunday, and the voice said, "Don't forget, you have a doctor's appointment tomorrow at 8." And I was so sick, I couldn't walk. I crawled, and it was about a 3 mile, like I army crawled. And I got to the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, and I was sitting at the front door, and the voices were like screaming. I just remember I had a poncho, and I pulled the poncho over my head and stuffed my pinkies in my ears. And I just remember going la 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 to try to drown out the noise. And they opened the doors. It's 7:45 that Monday morning, and I got on the phone, and I called my dad, I called my mom, I called my brothers, I called my son's mother, and I told all of them, "I'm going to kill you." Mm. Dr. Marilyn Smith was my psychiatrist for 14 years, and she came out. She knew something was wrong because I was acting very strange, and I got to her office, and she's like, "What's going on with you?" And I'm like, "I need my Bible. I need a one-way bus ticket. I'm going to Texas to pray over the flood victims." And she looked at me and she's like, "You're doing what?" And I said, "I need to go pray for the people of Texas." And she's like, "You're not going anywhere." So anyway, she called security, and security came. And in midterm, she looked at me. You know, I was starting to swell up because my kidneys had completely shut down. She asked me, she said, "Can I ask you a question? Like, what did you do? What did you take?" And I told her, and she looked me dead in my eyes, and she's like, You're not going to make it this time." And I laughed, and I said, "Good. So mission accomplished." And she's like, "Well, hold on a minute. Denver Health is the #1 toxicological hospital in all of Colorado. We can call and get you a bed there. Maybe they can work this out." And this is where I know God is real. Mm-hmm. I know divine intervention, because I mean, I should have already known because of how many times. I shot myself, almost bled to death, woke up, both legs were numb, and now both legs work, but one's half not working. I should have known from that. But anyway, she calls Denver Health, and they're like, "We're so sorry. We have no beds. We have no ambulances. We're short-staffed. You need to continue to the next hospital. We'd recommend St. Joe's." So she's on the phone with St. Joe's, and they're like, "All right, we're rushing an ambulance over there now to pick him up." And this will send chills up your spine. Like, into the lobby walks an EMT from Denver Health. And he's like, "Does anybody need a ride to the hospital?" Oh my gosh. And they're like, "Yeah, Whitney does." And they took me there. And I feel so bad for my mom. She's been, I don't know what so anyway, I get to the hospital, they do some tests, and they call my mom, and they told her he has 12 hours. Right. So if you want to come say bye, sign his right of will, because he refuses to sign it. And a right of will is basically, it exhumes liability from the hospital in times of death. And I wouldn't sign it because I told them this was my mission, and I was close to my mission. And my mom, she came. I don't know what the hell she was thinking, but she brought my son, who was 5 at the time, and I remember I was hooked up. She said I looked like the damn mission, or the Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. Like my wrists were the size of my calves.
I've seen fentanyl overdose.
So yeah, I was in total
It's
renal
brutal.
failure and 12 hours to live. She brings my son in. My son was my guardian angel. I remember laying there, whispers in my ear. And did it really happen? I was so out of it, but I honestly, truly believe that whisper. He's like, Daddy, I don't want you to die. And it wasn't like, no, this is crazy. So my urine, I had a catheter. It went from blood red to orange to yellow to clear within 36 hours. And I literally said he has 12 hours to live.
Yeah.
So it was like, so that right there shows you that, you know, whether you believe in God or not, that's not my place to put judgment on anybody. But there is a source of energy, we'll call it, out there that will cause things to happen that shouldn't happen. And that is one instance where that is undeniably the truth, is that I refer to him as God. If it happened to you, you could refer to it as the goodness energy of the atmosphere. But if a doctor pronounces you 12 hours to live, and then all of a sudden miraculously, because it was a miracle. You could ask the doctor today how it happened, and he would say, I have no idea.
Right.
And so, and what's sad is that was the closest I'd ever gotten, but it wasn't my last attempt. I've posted on Facebook many times that it's okay to not be okay. And even in sobriety, over 15 years sober, which means I have not had a drink of alcohol. I have not had a cigarette. I've not had any drugs, mild-term drugs. The medication I do take is prescribed by a licensed psychiatrist. And for me, I like this foundation of what I do to stay level and occupied and have sound mind. And even with AA, I still go to a therapist. I still see psychiatrists. I have a group of people who know me, and I've told them, and they're aware of the warning signs. So taken, for instance, I was on a certain medication. You're supposed to be on it for 3 years. I was on it for 22. And I switched psychiatrists, and the new one was like, there are more adverse effects from being on something long-term than withdrawing you from that, putting you on something new. Well, with bipolar medications, it rewires your brain so you're not, hypermania or hyper depressed. But when you do that, there can be a lot of adverse side effects. And I remember it took 6 months to get off one and it switched. And during that 6 months, and this is clean and sober, sound mind, going to AA, friends, family, loved ones, and I have people continually reminding me that I'm worthwhile, I'm caring, I'm kind. I have coworkers that actually they put a whiteboard on my desk that says you are important, because they know that I do suffer from chronic major depression, and just little tiny things like that help me. But anyway, I didn't know where I was going with that. But
you were talking about your seasonal depression.
So yes, so even with bipolar depression, there is, and it's been proven scientifically that there is something called SAD. And it's ironically, sadness and depression, they're not the same. They're not the same. Sadness is like what you feel when you lose a loved one, or you break up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or something tragic happens at work, you lose your job, and you feel sad, like you feel like you're missing something. Depression is a state of being where you're in this state that sometimes you don't even know why you're there. And it can be triggered by a breakup, a loss of a loved one. But there's different side effects. Like for me, if I'm majorly depressed, I won't leave my bed. I won't open the blinds. Even showering becomes like a tedious task
Mm-hmm.
because I know when I get in the shower and I feel that rain drip on me, it just, I end up spending 2.5 hours and it's a cold shower and I'm at the bottom, shivering and shaking. And the depression that I know about, it's not sadness. Not everybody suffers from depression. I know everybody feels like a certain sort of sadness that is incoherent, and you feel empty and shallow and hollow, but they're not the two. Depression is something you can't just, hit a light switch and you feel better. And then with SAD, which is an acronym for seasonal affective disorder, it's actually like how the light becomes less and less, because it's been scientifically proven that sunlight, there's a certain vitamin D that it gives off that exuberance. It's like when you hug somebody, if you hug somebody like a 20-second, and try it, hug somebody for 20 seconds. It's the longest 20 seconds of your life, but it will make you feel amazing. It's weird. And there's scientific based facts on all this of how to there's not a cure for depression. There's not a cure. But there are ways to lessen the weight, lessen the severity of it. But I think it all bases on the fact of like having a support system, of letting people know the warning signs of how your behavior changes, how your activities change, sometimes even your vocabulary, speaking too slowly, moving slowly, having no motivation, ignoring phone calls, ignoring texts. So I have this very long list.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother, God bless her soul, she knows me so well that she's usually the first to notice, like, hey, have you talked to your doctor lately?
Yeah.
Or hey, are you sleeping? Or hey, are you going to AA?
Mm-hmm.
The little things. So, and what I've also learned about depression, even though it's not curable or beatable, it's manageable.
Yeah.
For me, exercise is my go-to. Well, I shouldn't say my go-to. For me, just my personal belief, God is number one, exercise is number two, and then sleep is like in between that. So sleep is like 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I should have said, so God number one, sleep number two, because my sleep schedule, like if it falls off just a little bit, everything else starts to shift as well.
Right.
And so I think to help with seasonal affective disorder is important. Like, you don't want to get out of bed. I understand that, but force yourself to get out of bed.
Yeah.
You don't want to shower because, like my experience, anytime I get in the shower or bath, I cry. Well, it's better to go sulk or cry in the shower than it is to lie in bed where there's no physical activity and you're more there's a highly likelihood that you'll have worse thoughts just laying in bed with no activity. Your appetite decreases, so sometimes you have to force yourself to eat food. And I've learned,
or it's the opposite. You binge.
Yeah. So it's, but I think a support system is imperative, and to have at least one person know like the warning signs and be able to see the warning signs.
Yeah, I've dealt with severe depression in the past. Like super debilitating, where I could not get off my couch.
Mm-hmm.
I'd work, I always worked, but it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'd come home and I'd sit in the dark and I wouldn't move for my 3 days off that I would have. I couldn't get out of the house. I couldn't, and showering was an issue, brushing my teeth, and just doing small little tasks like going to the bathroom was so hard because my body was so heavy. And I went through that for a while and eventually just checked out. I couldn't do it anymore. And for me, and I started the therapy and all of that, but what changed my life was EMDR. And I personally didn't have to take medication. I did for a while, but then eventually was able to get off the medication. But I had to, when I got sober, because I didn't, you don't realize how depressed you were until you start getting healthy.
I know.
And then you look back and you're like, whoa.
That was close.
And I know, I was like, who was that person? But I had to set myself small little goals every day. And like every day, just take a shower. Or every day, just brush your teeth. Or every day, and like for 2 weeks, I just would force myself to shower. Sometimes it would be like later in the day when I was just like, okay, I have to do this. Or just brush your teeth. Just real quick, just do it. And until these things started becoming habits again. And now, I don't even have to think about those things. If I don't shower, I don't feel so good. That's when I start going down mentally.
The habits.
Exercise was huge for me, and and I take really good care of myself now, but I didn't, and it took time for me to get into a place where life flowed again, and I'm glad that you brought that up because you have to put effort into it. And starting that process is really, really difficult. But what completely changed my life is the EMDR. I will preach EMDR to the day I die. It's that rapid eye movement for trauma, and where my therapist did it with lights, and you follow the lights. And because I had voices in my head from just years of things that were said to me, years of conversations and things that I'm not going to put out there in these videos, but it was just years of just things that were said and done, choices that I made, choices that were out of my control, that wouldn't stop, over and over and over, just like on replay. And I couldn't stop. And I think it was different than the voices that you heard. You heard voices that were telling you to do something. I heard voices that were telling me what a horrible person I was. You're ugly, you're fat, you're a failure, just over and over and over in my head. And it just made what was a bad situation so much worse because it was constantly replayed. And while I still have all those memories, they're filed away now where they belong, and they're not all consuming in my head. So I don't sit and just cry over these things anymore like I did, because they're all in place. I have them, but they no longer completely consume my life. And so it didn't start with EMDR, because once you start something like that, you have to see it through and finish, or it doesn't work. It's just like it gets way worse before it gets better. Yeah. But once it was just like all of a sudden, all that was gone. Just after one or two sessions, it was gone. I was just like, I looked at my therapist, and I was like, oh my gosh, my head is clear. Wow! For the first time in my life, my head is clear. And it's stayed that way. And so, I will preach it forever. It sounds like hocus pocus, but for me, it was not hocus pocus. So one thing that I would love for you to touch on, you talked about where you came from, and I knew you had a good story because I've heard your story before.
Not just little bits.
And, right. But it was a lot. It was enough. And heck, if you want to come back next week and finish, you can. But
I would start from beginning at 4 and tell the entire journey of my addiction because.
Well, then you know what we need to do is we need to have a series with you.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
But what I want to do before we close today, why do you stay? I want you just to real quickly tell us, why do you stay?
Well, first off, yeah, I'm 15 years sober, but unlike you, I still hear the voices, and I hear them right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're a liar, they're a cheater, and they're a thief, and their main purpose and goal is to see that I fail. And luckily for me, because even right now, the wheels are spinning. And I'll say, even though I have a great life, the voices will say, I hate my life, I hate my life, I hate my life, I hate my life. But I know that's not me because I walk around and I enjoy my life. What keeps me staying around is with all of my being, I feel that I was blessed with a bottom that was bad enough that I will never forget how bad it got. Actually, yeah, I started a nonprofit. So another piece of advice I wanted to say before we do end this was find a hobby, find something that like you're passionate about, whether it's helping somebody, being a big brother, if you're like HVAC certified or mechanic, teach somebody that doesn't know about it. Or if you know a fun fact that somebody else doesn't know, I mean, share that knowledge. Find something that's your little niche and that makes you feel like you matter. Because we're all gifted with a certain gift. And to keep that gift and not give it away, you're being selfish because you were given that gift. Like whether it's to learn, how to read quickly or to pick up a skill quickly or work with your hands or speak multiple languages. I mean, you were given a gift to be able to do that because not everybody can do that. So, and that's huge for me is I give away what I've been given. And what I was given was the experience, even though it was very tragic, of what it's like to be homeless. So I started a nonprofit that actually gives back to the homeless community because I know what it was like to have nothing. And so my nonprofit, even though it's not much, we do these fundraisers throughout the year. We hand out backpacks. We hand out the essential stuff that you and I take for granted, whether it's toothpaste, toothbrush, a comb, a hat, a pair of gloves, a blanket, a coat. And then I do for homeless kids, like my biggest thing that touches my heart is I can't imagine being a child. And I remember back to school, like how excited I was to go get a new backpack and it filled with all the good supplies. And so the fundraising thing that's the nearest to my heart is our back to school event for kids experiencing homelessness, because I can't imagine like starting a new year of school and not having a backpack, and two, not having any school supplies, because teachers can't afford it. Teachers are not paid or rewarded enough to provide those school supplies for the less fortunate kids. So I think it's our duty. No kid should not have like basic stuff to go to school.
So people want to give to that. How do they find you?
Oh, you can look at my Facebook, Whitney Matthews. That's WHITNEY MATTHIES, and there's a link. Or the nonprofit is actually called Witnessin, WITNESSING Miracles. My nickname growing up was Witness. I'm also a witness to the kingdom, so that's Witnessin Miracles. And the reason I chose that is because I think we witness miracles, whether you believe it or not, every day. It's a miracle that your car will brake without you even having to worry about the brake system working or not working. I mean, that in itself is miraculous. Or if you get the chance to watch a flower bloom or a hummingbird fly in spot with, I mean, it's just, if you think about all the things that happen throughout your day on a minute-to-minute basis, they're all miraculous. And so I think we're all witnesses to miracles, and that's why my nonprofit is named that. And if you want to donate, there's a link. You just hit the donate tab, and I am a 501c3 approved. I have tax exempt ID. If you want to do a tax write-off, or if you just want to give out of your heart, my personal Facebook page has the link. I'm also on Instagram.
We'll have you post the link with the video. Once the video gets posted, we'll have you put the link in there.
Awesome.
Well, listen, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But if you're interested in talking about your life over a series of weeks and what brought you where you're at, love to have you come and talk further about that. I know you've got a lot to give. And I do want to thank all of you that did watch today, and loved having you online or on here with me. I'm very grateful.
Glad you invited me. This was fun.
Yep. And my website, Intervention Support Services, is down below. You can also, we're getting ready to drop a new page on my webpage, so I'm very excited about it. And at Love Prevails, we do offer peer support. We're here to help those that are the families that are, no longer want to watch their loved ones suffer with addiction, and connect with me. I'd love to be able to talk to you, people that are unsure where their journey is at and want to talk to somebody. I'm here. If you or somebody you know would like to share your story can and will change somebody's life. So I'd love to have you on. Please reach out to me. I definitely want to continue to thank everybody for all the support that they have given me through this journey. If you could please like, share, follow, and post, and just so that you can help me help other people that are struggling right now. And thanks again. Your best life is out there, just waiting for you. Connect with me, and we're gonna find it together. Hope everybody has a great Monday and is getting all your Christmas shopping done. Let's see. There we go.
Ding, ding, ding. Where's your ding, baby?